And I see a lot of people in this. I find it's more of my like seasoned professionals that shy away from really jumping into LinkedIn and sharing. Like you shared that you got laid off.
Mhm.
And I think that's such a new thing. This is one of those like post 2020
Yeah,
things that I'm seeing
yeah.
more of that we
Yeah.
didn't see before.
Mhm.
And I've been trying to encourage. I have a couple clients that had gotten laid off, and I'm trying to encourage them. It's okay. It's okay to post about that, and it's
Yeah.
okay to ask for help. And there's
Yeah.
so much pride wrapped up, and I think some ego wrapped up in being vulnerable enough to do that, and it stops people, and I'm like, "But you have no idea who is in your network that can help you."
That is mic drop. Like, if I had a mic, I will, like, drop it right here.
Welcome to Control Your Career, a podcast to help you conquer uncertainty, shatter imposter syndrome, and rise above the expectations imposed by others. My name is Julia Toothaker, and I am the career coach and strategist at Ride the Tide Collective, my career development company, where I offer career coaching, courses, and I have a plethora of free content. I have been doing this work for well over a decade. And I want to help empower professionals like you find clarity, navigate your career with intention, and help you advance in your career in alignment with your unique personality, preferences, and values. This podcast is a great place to start your journey toward controlling your career. I'm bringing back the ever popular Recruiter's Perspective theme for season 11 with a new group of recruiters and talent acquisition professionals to help you understand the hiring process from their lens. We'll be digging into resume and interview tips, talking about how the ATS works, looking at the history of the job market, and we'll be tackling hot button topics in recruiting and hiring. This is going to be a season full of great advice, tips, and uncovering the truth about the hiring process from those who are on the front lines of hiring. Find this episode and more at ridethetidecollective.com and connect with me on LinkedIn, where I post career information and inspiration to help you control your career. Welcome, everyone. We are back with another episode on the recruiter's perspective for 2025. And I'm going to tell you, this conversation I think is going to be relatable for a lot of people. My guest today is Sylvanna Berkowitz, and she is the founder of Tribe Talent Partners, which is a recruiting agency. And she'll go into more about what that means and what she does. But one of the reasons that she is on today is not only to share her extensive knowledge as a recruiter, but also to talk about a recent layoff. And that layoff also led to really going full force into her company, which is something that I know she had been considering for a while. So, Sylvanna, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I'm so happy to have you.
Thank you so much, Julia, for that warm introduction. Thank you. I appreciate being on this podcast. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Okay, I want to give you a chance to introduce yourself because I think that you know your experience better than anyone. So, if you could give the audience just an idea of your background within recruiting and talent acquisition and kind of how you got to where you are today.
Perfect. Will do. So I have a total overall 10 years recruitment experience. I started out in startup where I supported hospitality positions, cashiers, did that for a year, 9 months, and worked 80-hour work week. So that wasn't fun. And so I transitioned into more so the consultant side as a recruitment consultant for oil and gas, and that's where I learned a lot about agency recruiting, where I specialized in engineering, corporate services type of positions, supporting major clients like Exxon, Shell, Chevron, all those major operators. And so that it was the majority of my agency experience, and then I transitioned into corporate over the last 4 or 5 years. During the pandemic. And it was a totally different ball game. I still supported corporate services within the companies I supported, and as you know, you've mentioned, I was laid off in my most recent work experience, and that has transitioned me into starting my own company as an agency owner, supporting corporate services for Fortune 100 companies with less than 1,000 headcount.
I love that. And again, we're going to go into that a little bit more later in the conversation. But first, I want to pick your brain as a recruiter who has some extensive knowledge in the industry. Let's get into some of the specifics. So, first, let's talk ATS. I think this is such an issue because we hear so much misinformation about ATS out there, and I would love to know from you, what is your experience with ATS? What are we looking for? I know you hear things out there from candidates about AI and all of that. Like, please give us your experience with ATS.
This is my favorite topic out of every topic ever, just because I love to bust myths. All right, so ATS, it is not an artificial intelligence where it's rejecting candidates because they're lacking keywords. It's not rejecting candidates because the formatting is, on the left side versus the right side. That is not what the ATS system is. The ATS system is just an applicant tracking system. It's a filing system for companies where you create your account with your name, address, phone number, all that good stuff. You apply to the position and you're able to upload your resume to that specific requisition. Now, on the recruiter side, I can look then at the job description and see all the candidates who've applied to that position. I, as a recruiter, can review the resumes, can reject candidates. It asks for prompt for a recruiter to prompt certain tasks. So, if
Mhm.
anyone's saying, "Oh, pay me this money because I'm going to create a resume that's ATS friendly," they're just scams. And an ATS system is as simple as just an electronic filing cabinet.
Yes, thank you so much for saying that, because even as a career coach, I don't push that narrative at all, and so it's so hard for me when I see other career coaches who really don't have a lot of longevity or experience in the field pushing this, like, "Get your ATS friendly, resume template here," all of that. I'm like, that's not real. You just need to tailor to the position. There's nothing
They
like
need to look at that person's LinkedIn profile and see how many years experience they have as a recruiter. Did they just graduate from marketing from marketing university and just created a website? 'Cause that's what I've seen.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Even me, like, I'm on other social media platforms outside of LinkedIn, and I see people peddling this stuff, and I go immediately to LinkedIn, and they have nothing in their profile.
Yes.
And I'm like, what's happening? Like, what is going on here? So yes, I love that we are mentioning this because these scams and these things that people are promising, it's just not real. So
Mhm.
I feel like every episode this season we're going to be saying that, and I think that's okay because it needs to be reiterated. Even me as a career coach, it really dilutes what we are trying to do. Those of us who are trying to be above board and really help people and be really intentional with our coaching. So yes, please be on the lookout for those ATS resume scams. I can't even handle it.
Same. I see it on my feed and I just comment like, "You're a scammer. Please don't listen to this person."
Yes, yes. Okay, so speaking of resumes, I mean, let's go into that. Let's talk about what some of your resume tips are as a recruiter. What are you looking for?
Very good question. This is great. So, a couple of tips for candidates out there who just needs to, spruce up their resume. Number one is having your summary in bullet point format. The reason why is your summary section is under your name and contact information. That's even before we look at your experience. So candidates need to think of the summary section as a checklist. So you need candidates need to include their years of experience, what job title they've held, what industries they've been in your summary. The reason why is recruiters were reading so many resumes, hundreds of resumes for separate positions. We need to very quickly make a decision. The resume that I'm seeing here, okay, check mark. John has 5 years experience. John is an accounting manager in oil and gas industry. So check, check, check. So that is
Mhm.
number one. Make sure that their resume is in bullet point format and relevant to the job description. Um, Second thing would be if candidates have taken on contract positions, like short term, maybe they supported someone on mat leave, make sure you include the word contract next to the job title or next to
Mm.
that, role. The reason why is hiring managers will look at short-term positions and think, oh, this person's a job hopper when it was just a contract role to support someone on mat leave or, supporting, a project. Um, Another thing is whenever a candidate is, looking at a job description and thinking to themselves, like, oh, I can do that job. I can do that job. I can do that job. Um, you need to reframe your thought process into thinking, I have experience in that. I have experience in implementation. I have experience in X, Y, and Z, and make sure that's reflected in your resume. So that is, the top tips I can, provide.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Okay. I love this. I want to dig in a little bit more. So first, that top section, the summary section. I love that. I have seen so many summary sections that are just a large block of text, paragraph, and it is so hard to read. And
Mhm.
I will tell you, that is the biggest giveaway to me that you have gone through that resume writer certification thing. Like, I can spot those resume formats from a mile away. And so I
Mhm.
love that you said that because it's anything bulleted is so much easier to follow, anything that you can help draw the eye to. So, I so appreciate you saying that from a formatting perspective. The contract work, that is also really good because I don't know that I really thought about that very intentionally, but I think that's also great for people who maybe have been laid off
Mhm.
from full time and are doing maybe some short-term projects or things for different companies, actually saying that it's contract work. I love that. I think that's great to help with some of that gap. Even though I would love to believe that people are not really thinking about gaps anymore, we
Yeah.
know that there are hiring managers out there that are like, "How come there's this gap?" And I'm like, "Is it after 2020? Because if
Yeah.
it's after 2020,
Give him
you cannot
grace.
have an opinion."
Yeah, give him grace, please. Can we look at your
Yes,
can we look at your tenure?
right? Um, and then what was the last thing that what was your last tip?
When reading the job description, instead of thinking, "Oh, I can do that," think, have experience in that."
Yes. So this plays into the people that apply for an obscene amount of positions because that's what they do. They look at it and go, "Yeah, I could do that. I
Mhm,
could do that." A
mhm.
lot of us can do a lot of
Yeah,
things.
yes.
Especially if you're in that mid-career and you've
Mhm,
maybe made a couple transitions, you have a vast skill set, but that does not mean that that is the job that A, you're qualified for, or B, that you even want to do.
yeah,
And so I know that people get into this desperation place, and I honor that. I totally understand, but you also have to take a step back and go, "Do I actually want this? And do I have the experience?" It doesn't have to match 100%, but I think right now with the market, you really need to be in that, like, 70 to 80% plus match with a job description. Would you agree with that, or am I off base there?
No, you're 100% on base, Julia. You've mentioned the job market. Like, yes, maybe you could have done it prior to 2020, but this job market in 2025 is brutal, and we're only in March. So you need to spruce it up, use Chat GPT to the best of your ability.
Oh my gosh, yes. That could be a whole other
That's another
episode.
topic.
All right. Well, let's go into the interview process because I know that I have heard from a lot of clients that they're actually getting interviews, which I'm like, yes, that's amazing.
Yeah.
We are celebrating interviews in this season of job searching. So what are you looking for in the interview process, and like what do you want candidates to come with, especially for that kind of frontline first point of contact interview?
Yes, very good question. Biggest thing for me, in my 10 years of experience is having your pitch ready. There is one question that you'll get asked 100% of the time, and that is, tell me about yourself. Tell me about yourself. And there is a framework to follow when you do talk about yourself. You want to hook them, in your first pitch. So you want to follow a framework where you talk about your present, past, and future. I don't know if you use this with your clients, Julia, but it is the most like the best framework you can follow when you're answering your question, and then everything else, will follow through from there. So that is my first. Second thing is
Well, hold on.
research. Oh
I have
yes,
to insert really quick into
yeah.
that.
Hmm.
So, I actually have another podcast episode where I talk about the tell me about yourself question, and I give a couple of different formats, and that is one of the formats, and I go more in depth with how to do it. So, if people are interested in that, I will make sure to link it into the blog post so that they can kind of go a little bit deeper with that process.
Yes, and it's so helpful. I'm so glad you have that video for them to review.
Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Sorry to interrupt.
No, no, you're fine. Second thing is pretty straightforward is research the company, but not just, their about me section. Look at their most recent reports. Any sort of like recent articles they've posted on their website, those are providing you their most up to date information as far as like what's going on, within the company. And that is something you can bring into your to your interview. It shows that you've went above and beyond, not just knowing about what the company does, but what they did recently. If they've completed a project, or if they've, got a project, going. And so, second thing, that is super, super important. And lastly, is always have your questions ready to go at the end, outside of asking about pay, outside of asking for benefits, outside of asking those, you know, um, items. Although they are very important, they're not the most important to help you stand out in the interview. So, one question, I love, to hear, or, to ask, is one, as a candidate, you want to know, why is the position open? Are they
Mm.
backfilling? Do they have, someone internally being considered for the position? So those are very, very important. It'll give you an idea as to, what you're getting yourself into. And then second thing is, or second most important question for me is you asking the hiring manager, what would be the first thing that you need me to tackle in my first, 30 days, the first 60 days, first 90 days? The reason why is then you can reframe your answers and say, oh, thank you, hiring manager. I've actually done that at, my previous job where I've done X, Y, and Z.
Yes. Ah, I love that. I love that. Okay, I'm gonna add on to that. That if you are a candidate that has done a lot of preparation, which I'm sure most people have at this point, and you understand your values, you
Mhm.
understand what you're looking for in an organization, in a manager, in a culture, all of that. Those are also really great questions to ask because, and this is probably more so for people who are making a transition versus people who have lost their job, because at that point, like, it's a little bit different depending
Mhm.
on how quickly you need to get a job. But for people who are doing some intentional switching and looking for a new opportunity, or you want a different manager situation or whatnot, make sure that you're asking those questions, because those are the reason that you're leaving the current position, and you don't want to end up in the same situation.
Yes, those are very good points, Julia. It's really important to figure out like where, you're heading into, what is their management style, because maybe you're leaving a micromanager, then you don't want to join, the same, type of management style.
Yes, yes, and it gives you a chance as well to share your preferences, right? And I think that's always helpful, especially in the manager conversation, not always in the recruiter conversation, but
Yeah.
if you make it to that manager interview, that's such a good thing to ask and a good thing to share to make sure that everybody's on the same page.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
Okay, let's talk about cover letters. This seems to be one of the most controversial questions I ask recruiters. But what are your thoughts? Do we love them? Do we hate them?
Hate them. Waste of time. Don't put in so much time into your cover letter. Now, I would like to add, for recruiters, we don't look at cover letters. We look at straight to the resume. We review so many resumes, per job requisition. We just don't have time to even read it. Now, my strategy to that then is, if you do interview with a recruiter and you move forward with a hiring manager and you interview with a hiring manager, then at that point, I think it's appropriate to send, a standard cover letter to the hiring manager, because one, they're not the ones bombarded with, resumes. And
Mhm.
it'll give if they have time, they'll read your cover letter and perhaps be impressed with, what you've written down. So that's just my opinion.
I love that. I think that tracks with a lot of other recruiters that I've spoken to. One thing I will say about the cover letter too is I think it depends on the level that you're at as well. I've heard from a lot of people that when you're getting into more of that like middle management space, sometimes the cover letter is really helpful to just share out different information, because the resume is more of the stats and the statistics and the
Hmm.
skills, all of those hard skills that you have. And the cover letter, when it's requested, allows you to really share more of your story, more of your why. Again, you're not going to regurgitate the uh the the resume. You're
Hmm.
going to tell a story. You get to connect with why this company, why this position, and I think that also helps the manager understand how invested you are in the position, which is why, even though I will tell people to use AI to help with kind of base language,
Hmm.
AI can be a little robotic in how it sounds, and so you need to make sure that you are adding your own voice and personal touch to those cover letters, even if you are using something like ChatGPT as a base.
Absolutely. And you've made a really good point. While we do use Chat GPT and like AI to help us with, certain prompts, it's even as important to make it sound like you, because then you're not sounding like a robot and you're not sounding like everyone else. Because if everyone's else just copying and pasting Chat
Yes.
GPT, which I've seen, like I've actually seen comments on LinkedIn that's sounding like Chat GPT-ish. And I'm just like, and posting. So, anyways, yeah, it's so important to make it sound like you.
Yes, yes. Okay, we mentioned this a little bit earlier, but I want to have a brief conversation about recruiting now versus recruiting before 2020. I think 2020 was such a pivotal change for the world of work
Hmm.
as a whole. And not only that, but I know I'm seeing a lot of more seasoned applicants, more seasoned candidates come through, and I think a lot of them are really shocked with what the market looks like right now. And, 10 years ago, about when you started, it was much easier to get a position in that mid-career space. And now we're seeing people who have like amazing experience. It's taking them so much longer to get a position than it did in the past. What are some of your thoughts on that? And what have you seen in some of that shift?
Yeah, very good. No, very good topic in general because 2020, it was, and before that, it was easier to get a job. There was, people who know people, but now, in 2025, people are using social media more. People are using LinkedIn as their main job board. And so they are increasing their connections virtually, right? Whereas, before 2019, you perhaps just connected with your ex-colleagues, people, your managers. But now, in this market, there's more expansive options, to network, and just networking with someone you don't know from, a different state, et cetera.
Mhm.
So there's that shift, but also there's just more competition. There's just more competition now than in 2020. And the reason why I'm saying that is I was a recruiter. I would review all these applicants. There would be hundreds and hundreds of applicants for one position, and these are great qualified candidates, okay, for the job, the job posting. There's only one open position, right? So there's just a lot more applicants. There's a lot more social, media networking. There's a lot more competition, in this markets, and that's what I've
Mhm.
been seeing.
Yeah, I and so as you were talking about that and talking about competition, it brought me back to something I posted actually last year around generations and how there are a lot of people in that boomer generation. And I'm sorry if somebody's offended by me saying boomer. That's everybody knows them as that. So that's what we're gonna call them.
Hmm.
So people in the boomer generation not retiring
Hmm.
or coming back to work. And I know a lot of them are doing it for financial reasons, some are doing it because they just enjoy their work, but I feel like that generation not retiring at the quote unquote like appropriate time that we expected
Yeah.
them to retire has almost it's created this backup in, uh, in the market as well, and I don't know if you've seen that, in the types of positions that you've recruited for, but I know that's something that I've just kind of seen and felt generally over the years as well.
Yes, I've seen that too. And there's still a shift in, or, same, thought process, with hiring, with tenure. Boomers could have stayed at a job for, 20 years, retire, from that company. Whereas now, over the last, 10 years, people are job hopping because one, they've been laid off. There's no, company
Mhm.
loyalty, right? So there's still like a shift of, hiring thought process as far as like what is a good talent. And you also want to open up that position for the next generation, and it's not being available, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think this is such an important conversation for job seekers, whether, again, you're in a layoff situation or you are looking to transition, to understand about what is going on in the market right now. And so when we talk about those differences from 10 years ago, I think that's that's so much of it, right? You have a generation that's not retiring, you have a new generation that's job hopping, and then everybody in the middle is getting laid off currently. And there's so much chaos. And so I think if you're in a situation where maybe you have not been a part of that chaos because you've been in a company or you've been, in a position for a really long time, that's going to be a big shock to you when you come out and you're trying to make that transition. It's chaotic. I That's the best way I could describe it.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you that this is so chaotic right now, and it's scary for a lot of people.
Yeah. Julia here. Are you feeling stuck in your career, unsure of how to break through to the next level? I'm excited to share a transformative opportunity. The Career Advancement Intensive. It's a focused 1 day experience designed specifically for ambitious professionals ready to define their career path. In this immersive session, you'll work one on one with me to help you gain fresh insights into your professional strengths and uncover opportunities for growth. Together, you'll clarify your goals, refine your personal brand, and develop a strategic roadmap tailored to your unique aspirations. Imagine leaving the day with renewed confidence, a clear vision of your next steps, and practical actions you can implement immediately. As a bonus, you'll receive additional resources, tools to enhance your resume, optimize your online presence, and deepen your understanding of what drives you professionally. Not all coaching requires a 6 month commitment. The Career Advancement Intensive is perfect for ambitious professionals who want answers and strategies quickly. Before committing, let's make sure that this program is the best option for you in my complimentary career coaching clarity call. The link will be in the show notes and description for this episode. Now, let's get back to the show. I want to transition us into talking a little bit more about layoffs. So, one of the things I'm doing this season is having recruiters choose something to talk about for us to go a little bit more in depth with. And I think right before you and I met to talk about this episode was when you got laid off. And from what I could tell, it was a complete shock. And you didn't see it coming. And I appreciate you so much for being open and willing to talk about this and to talk about your experience and the feelings and all of that. So, would you just take a minute and kind of share with people what happened and kind of what were those first couple of days like for you?
Sure. Thank you so much for asking that question. I think it's important to talk about it, just because one, I've seen a lot of companies laying off, people. I see it on LinkedIn. Um, and what happened was on February, 18, it was actually my mom's birthday. So, yeah, it was my mom's birthday, and I was getting, I went to work, and I was just like, oh my gosh, let me, my husband and I, we got some, nice dinner planned, for my mom's birthday, and then it was around like 3 p.m. where, I got that dreaded, virtual call, with, my direct manager, and yeah, he had to, lay me off, and it was my first time, like it was my first time ever laid off, right? So obviously it was a shock. He I mean, I was just like, shaking, and they asked me like, "Oh, did you have any questions?" And I just nothing came out. And I just like stood frozen. And so it's certainly a shock. And obviously the first person I talked called was my husband. And then second person I talked to was my friend who Sarah Englade. She's on LinkedIn. She's got great like she's an agency owner, and she's killing it. She's done all that stuff. And she was like, okay, she called me back. She was like, been there before, you got this. Let me know if you need anything. So that was that. And then obviously, like, I'm not going to tell my mom on her birthday that I got laid off. So my husband and I, we just talked and said, like, just, keep it moving. Like, nothing happened until after. So let's enjoy this dinner and then after. So,
Aw.
so that's what happened. The next day, I just decompressed. I didn't eat. I'm one of those like where if I'm stressed, I'm not gonna eat. So like I didn't eat for like the whole day. And then yeah, it sucked. It was just like I was just thinking, I was just moping. Um, but I know I know I was like, okay, next day, like I know I need to, like do something. And
Right.
so the next day is when I started, my business, and I am, now a founder of Tribe Talent Partner, where I support corporate, companies and supporting them in their, talent search efforts. And I always believe when one door closes, another one opens. And I actually had one foot, I had like a one foot out in my last two corporate roles. I don't know if I should say that, but like the corporate,
You're not employed there anymore. It's okay.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Let me tell you. I had one foot out in, my corporate jobs just because one, it's on a slower pace, and I'm someone that's just
Mhm.
like, I need to be doing something. It's calling. I need to, just do, prospecting and all that. So, yeah, this has been a really good, good process for me. Although probably I'm saying this now, but we'll see like 3 months, 4 months later. So I feel good so far. Check in with me 3 months later.
All right. All right. We'll definitely do that. Thank you for sharing that experience because I think so many people, obviously, we're seeing a lot of layoffs. We've seen it for the last couple of years. And just to be willing to come on here and share that and make it, I think, very real and relatable for people. I think even managers, I mean, I feel for people managers right now too, who have to have those conversations when they likely don't want to or don't
Mm,
think that it's warranted when it's part of a larger riff or something like that. So I just appreciate you so much coming on and talking about like the not eating and having that day. And for some people, it's going to be longer than a day, right?
uh-huh.
For some people, it might be a week before they get going because they just, if you had a stressful job, you
Oh
have to
yeah.
decompress from that and deal with the emotions, and there's so much going on with that, but also, I think this idea of transitioning into a business, I love it for a couple of reasons. One, I've seen a lot of clients recently who in their kind of mid-career have gone through a layoff for whatever reason and immediately are like, "I think I might wanna start a business."
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
And even though I'm a career coach and I generally work with people in corporate and all of that, I have had this conversation multiple times in the last year, more so than I ever have in my coaching career.
Wow.
And I think it really speaks to people not only seeing where the market is going, but also I think wanting more flexibility and control over their day and their time and their work. And you even kind of said it too. That corporate recruiting can be a little bit slow at times,
Mhm.
especially if you have cycles and things like that. So then when you have your own business, you get to choose, in a lot of ways, how many clients you take on and how many positions you're recruiting for and all of that. So you mentioned that you were kind of already thinking about this. Obviously, the layoff pushed you into it a little bit more, but what were you thinking before that in wanting to start this company?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So, like I mentioned, I had like one foot out, and I've always like it was always in the back of my head when I was, an agency for oil and gas. I was like, oh, companies hire companies to hire people. Like make it make sense. Why can't you guys just hire people on your own? So, I had, that thought process, and over time I've developed, good network, and yeah, it was just always in the back of my head. I was like, "Oh, what if I start my own agency?" But then, the fear is I don't wanna lose benefits. I don't wanna lose stable income. I don't I like, my, Monday through Friday 40-hour work week where, if you
Mhm,
are an entrepreneur, you're putting in hours. Like this is your, not just like Monday through Friday, but perhaps like Saturday, Sunday, working till, 7 to 8 p.m. Like yesterday, I worked until 8 p.m. just trying to, get new business. And,
mhm,
this morning I'm getting emails where it's like, sorry, don't have a need for you. So like those type of emails just keep me going, but also there is that fear. And it I am jumping onto it, 100%. And I'm so thankful, for, my family, my husband who supported me, just, pushed me to it, but also my LinkedIn network. I have over, 44,000 followers, and everyone on my LinkedIn has been like the best supportive people I've ever met. And I'm just so glad, I have this platform.
That's so amazing. I love hearing that. Like LinkedIn, I hear so much negativity about LinkedIn, and I'm fully convinced it's from people that have no idea how to utilize it well.
Yeah.
And I'm a career coach, I'm not a recruiter,
Mhm.
but understanding how to leverage LinkedIn in situations like this is so crucial. And I see a lot of people in this, I find it's more of my like seasoned professionals that shy away from really jumping into LinkedIn and sharing. Like you shared that you got laid off.
Mhm.
And I think that's such a new thing. This is one of those, like, post 2020 things
Yeah.
that I'm seeing
Yeah.
more of that we
Yeah.
didn't see before,
Mhm.
and I've been trying to encourage. I have a couple clients that had gotten laid off, and I'm trying to encourage them, it's okay. It's okay to post about that, and it's
Yeah.
okay to ask for help, and there's
Yeah.
so much pride wrapped up, and I think some ego wrapped up in being vulnerable enough to do that, and it stops people, and I'm like, "But you have no idea who is in your network that can help you."
That is mic drop. Like if I had a mic, I will like drop it right here. Where is the emoticon? But no, you're so right. LinkedIn, like I don't think you and I would have talked if it wasn't for LinkedIn, right?
No.
There are like I have LinkedIn besties where I have group chats with, other recruiters, and I've never met
Mhm.
them in person, but I genuinely feel like they're my friends. Like we're on a, text message basis now. And people are absolutely willing to help. People have helped me when I made that post that I was laid off. People, DM'd me and said, "Hey, how can I help? Do you need anything?" So there's just so many ways that you can use LinkedIn on a positive note to help you out, in this transition, but also, in whatever, business, prospects that they're trying to do.
Yeah, yeah. I wanna dig a little bit more into tips around this, because I think people who are listening, maybe who have been laid off or maybe listen to this and then get laid off, who knows what's happening these days. But I want to provide some tips around what to do kind of right when it happens, right? Like what are the initial things that we need to think about doing and what are some of the longer term things? I have a couple of ideas, but I would love to hear from you first. What do you think is really helpful, especially since you have just gone through this? What are some tips that you would give people?
Yeah. Give yourself grace. Um, just be kind to yourself. That is the best thing, because ultimately being laid off is outside of your control. Companies can say like, "Oh, because of, your numbers, because of this, because of that." At the end of the day, they're going through budget cuts, and they're just trying to figure out who they need to, let go, and it's either you or, the other person. So just give yourself grace. It was totally outside your control. Give yourself time. So whenever you're ready, I would reach out to your network, your peers in the past, people you've worked with, your past managers. Where are they working at? But you don't want to ask
Mhm.
them right away, like, "Hey, do you have any jobs for me?" Like, ease into that conversation. Just catch up with your network, and just see how their family's doing. How's their dog, how's their cat, and just ease into those conversations and be genuine. be
Mhm.
genuine when connecting, reconnecting with your network. So those would be, my immediate things, to think about. But longer term is to continue talking to people. Don't stop talking to people because this job market is insane. Um, the recruiter that you talk to don't, like now you have their email. Perhaps reach out to them periodically, even if you got rejected. Reach out to them,
Mhm.
every month or every 2 months, and just keep it in a friendly manner because you just never know what opportunities will pop up in the time that you've reached out to them.
Yes, yes. Oh, I love all of that, and it's slightly different from what I was thinking, so I love that we can share different tips.
Yes, I'd love to hear
So,
yours.
yeah, so one of my main things, and this is a LinkedIn tip, and we sort of touched on it. If you are going to do a post about being laid off, there's the "I just got laid off. Oh my gosh, I have no" like, the
Hmm.
shock post, right, that does not have a lot of information. That's totally fine. People support that. But you have to follow that up
Yeah.
with a, "Here is what I'm looking for. Here's, here are the job titles. Here's my experience." Don't just say, "Hey, I'm on the job market now after a layoff. Let me know if you have any openings or connections." Not helpful at all.
Hmm.
Not helpful. So be as detailed as you can without being overly detailed
Yeah.
in that. So get specific with what you truly want to do. So we mentioned earlier the what you can do versus what you have experience for, right?
Hmm.
Be honest with yourself around that and really put what that ideal position, that ideal company, what you're looking for. You would be surprised because those posts do really well organically
Yeah.
and people will reach out to you if you have a decent following on LinkedIn or a decent connection grouping. People will see it and they will support you and they will help you. Um, so definitely recommend that. From a self-care perspective, and I think this is in that first like week or so, depending on your situation. You mentioned, giving yourself grace, like being kind to yourself. I think also there's this idea, "Oh, we have to jump into the job search right away." Like next day or a couple days after, "Okay, now I gotta
Yeah.
do the resume and I gotta apply and I gotta do that." Don't do that. I do not, unless you were already prepared for
Mm.
some reason, like, if you already maybe this is like a second layoff. I know a lot of people have gone through that in the last couple of years. If you have all that prepared, great, start applying, whatnot. But
Mhm.
honestly, if this was a big shock to you, I would take some time and do not feel bad about it if you can.
Mhm.
Give yourself a couple of days to just honestly like be in your feelings with it because it can be really hard, especially for my high achievers, my
Yeah.
high performers, where it had nothing to do with your performance. It was outside of your control. It was a blanket cut, something like that. Those are the people that are going to take it really hard because they're going to keep thinking, well, what could I have done? What could I? Nothing.
Mhm.
Nothing. It has nothing to do with you, and you have to separate yourself from those feelings. And so give yourself a couple of days to feel that. Talk to people, seek out friends, exactly what you did to get some additional support, and then put a plan together. And this is more of that long term. I cannot stress enough. People go into the job search process and they just, we used to call it spray and pray. I don't know if they call it that anymore.
Yeah, we have something similar called post and pray as recruiters. Like when you post a job description and you just pray the right candidate will apply, which I've never like I don't follow that. But yeah, there is a term called post and pray.
Well, and so, like, for candidates, like, don't just go and apply for everything. Like, have a strategy, connect with people. So, spend some of your day on LinkedIn making connections. Or if you don't use LinkedIn as much, start or
Mhm.
text people, email people, kind of similar to what you were saying. Reconnect with people and let them know what is going on and what you're looking for and be as clear as possible, right? And then long term, I know we have some people who are on months of being laid off because they just have not been able to get something. That's just the way this market is right now.
Yeah.
And in those scenarios, I had a client that was just going through this, and their thought process was, this is my full-time job now.
Hmm.
And I need to be like focused on the job search for 6 to 8 hours every day. And I'm like, no, please don't do that. I understand why. I understand why you think you need to do that. The
Yeah.
problem is job searching is soul sucking, even when it's intentional.
Yeah.
Right? And so if you are spending 6 to 8 hours of your day in a soul-sucking, like, process and tasks and all of that, it's going to deplete your energy. It's going to make you very desperate when you're not hearing back. You're gonna see more rejection than you are gonna see any kind of response and positivity, which will ultimately impact your mental health. And so my conversation with this client was, "Look, you need to pull back a little bit and, give yourself like maybe 2 hours a
Yeah.
day and do an hour focused on networking and an hour focused on application. And if all you do is one application, great." And I actually encourage them, don't apply for something if it's been open longer than 24 to 48 hours, because that'll help you real quick weed some positions out.
Hmm.
And then he's like, "What do I do with the other time?" And I'm like, "Do something that is constructive." And my client actually is also in that wanting to possibly do a business. And so they're looking at that piece of it. And I said, "Do that because that's giving you life and energy right now,
Yeah.
and even if you apply for a full-time position, you can also talk about how you spent this time exploring business opportunities or doing some training. There's so many free resources out there. Like, do something that is life giving to you. So I don't know. I feel like that might be the antithesis of what other career coaches might tell you, but I feel like mental health is such a huge issue right now in the job search, especially from people who've been laid off, that I don't want people to feel like they have to give their entire life over to that process.
No, I agree with you, Julia. And honestly, like if you're applying, from not 8 a.m., to 5 p.m., like what quality positions are you actually applying for? So perhaps think about it
Mhm.
more as a quality versus quantity. You want to be selective in the companies and positions where you have the highest chance, of getting of getting an interview. I always recommend to my clients that, they need to reach out to their competitors, right? Like hiring managers that I've always worked with are always telling me, hey, I need a candidate, but I prefer is the key word here. I prefer candidates from
Mhm.
this industry. So if you're in the industry, highly, highly recommend you seek out your competitors, seek out, the small
Mhm.
startup companies in that industry and, make an introduction and, apply.
Yes, yes, I love that. Oh my gosh. Okay. I wanna we're getting toward the end here, and I would love to know from you. This has been such an amazing conversation. I feel like we could go on for probably
Yeah.
another hour
No,
digging into
literally.
to more of this. But I would love to know from you, what is something that you think job seekers should be doing, but they aren't?
Oh, that's such a good question. Utilizing LinkedIn to the best of their ability. LinkedIn, I know, like we just talked about it earlier, gets flagged like, oh, it's just one of those social media sites. But you have a social media platform where you can know who the CEO is of the company, who is the hiring manager for that company, um, what did they post recently? Oh, their posting didn't have as many likes. Why don't you like it and make a comment and, help yourself stand out? It just utilize LinkedIn to the best of your ability. Just use it, exhaust it. just connect with as many people as possible. And to add caveat, don't just say, "Do you have any jobs for me?" Please don't do that. Like that will not work. But be genuine in your connections. Truly look, if they've commented, comment on their comments, engage. And that's a more organic approach to networking.
Yes, I love that, and I'll tell you, okay, this is a little thing that happened to me that is so cool.
Hmm.
There is somebody that I am connected to. He and I have never met in real life, but I worked for the company that he is now on the board of, and we have all these, like, connections to each other. So, like, we know each other, but we don't know each other,
Yeah,
if that makes
yeah.
sense, and we are not in the same industry,
Yeah.
but he will periodically post, content that is career related or something that hits in my industry, and so I will usually comment a very thoughtfully, so not just like, "Oh, this is a great post,"
Yeah.
but actually adding value to what he's saying, confirming what he's saying, sharing my experience, all of that. He has a newsletter that he will feature people that have,
Oh,
commented on his posts, and so I've been featured in his newsletter multiple times now. He tags me in the newsletter, and it seems like such a small thing because 'cause I'm one of probably 20 people that he tags, but it's so huge in terms of engagement and then having that external person going, "I value what you're adding to the conversation." And so I think just to add on to what you're saying with LinkedIn, when
mhm.
you find the right people to connect with, I think that really helps in terms of the engagement and then getting your name out there even more. So I just want to reiterate that and give an example of how LinkedIn can work well for you when you use it appropriately.
Yes, absolutely. And a personal story, for me was during the pandemic. A friend or someone I didn't know, but she lived in Houston. She reached out to me and just like messaged me and just say like, "Hey, you want to catch a cup of coffee?" And I said no, but like we communicated throughout the years. She started her own business in that time frame, but I've always liked her comments, her postings on LinkedIn. She's now built an over like $1 million agency, business in that time that I've known her. I've never met her in person, but we've always supported each other. And we've met for the first time last month. And she's actually like my mentor, and she's helping me, in this business process that I'm going through. So that's so valuable to me.
That's so amazing. See everybody, these are the examples of how LinkedIn can
Yeah,
help you in
exactly.
multiple scenarios, right? In
Hmm.
multiple situations. All right, well, to wrap us up today, I would love to know, I know we have gone through a lot, but are there any last thoughts or tips that you didn't get to share that you wanna make sure that you get out there for everybody?
Yeah, if you are wanting to start posting on LinkedIn, it you have, you've been in this industry for X amount of years, like start sharing your knowledge, to people, and you will be surprised how many people, will start following you, will start liking and, engaging in your comments now. This is something, to invest time in. So it's not like the first post you're going to get tons of like likes and followers, but over time, if you consist and post and engage, Monday through Friday, you'll start to gain a following and perhaps expand your network. And you never know what introductions you'll find.
Yes, I love that. Ah, such a great tip. Okay, so let people know where and how they can reach you if they wanna connect.
LinkedIn, you can find me on LinkedIn. My name is on there spelled correctly. So just, copy and paste that. Follow me on LinkedIn. And I have, my website on there. If you are, needing some, career consultation, it's on my LinkedIn page as well. And if you ever need an agency, Please reach out to me. I would love to talk to you.
Yes, and I will make sure that links to your LinkedIn and to your agency are in the blog post for this episode so everybody can get connected with you seamlessly. And if you already follow me on LinkedIn, I'll be tagging you in different content when this episode goes live. But thank you so much for being a guest. This was such a wonderful conversation. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Julia. This was a blast. Time flew by so fast, and I feel like we could talk some more.